أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء. My brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This morning we will have a discussion. It is not a lecture but a discussion on the nature of differences in Masalik and Mazahib al-Fiqhiyya, which means what is the nature of these differences. Before I proceed to the meat of my discussion, I would like to have a very brief informal session with you. And I would like brothers who know something about fiqh to help me in understanding what is the meaning of fiqh. Brother Talib, what is the meaning of fiqh? What do you know about fiqh?
Well, I think this comes from the word to distinguish. And the man who is practicing is a taqi.
Is?
The man who is judging is a taqi. That means taqi.
Faqih?
Yeah, this is the man who is practicing fiqh or giving judgment. And poor is fuqaha.
I see. What else?
Fiqh is a fixed term in Islamic teaching of ulumuddin. Fiqh is a fixed teaching of ulumuddin.
Fiqh is teaching ulumuddin.
Fixed like lugha, sirah, etc.
I see. Anything else someone can help? Yes?
Basically, deep understanding of Islamic law.
Okay. Anything else?
And there may be slight difference among different schools.
Any other brother who would like to help? Yes?
Faqaha, the word faqaha means to have a deep comprehension. Yes. And yes, to understand deeply something.
Good.
And fiqh as Islamic science is the science of the law and jurisprudence.
Science of
Law and jurisprudence.
law and jurisprudence.
Jurisprudence.
Okay, what is difference between the two? It is same thing or different?
Yes. Law itself is the Sharia.
Sharia.
The science which analyzes and studies Sharia is fiqh.
I see. The science of fiqh analyzes Sharia. Anything else?
There are many tendencies, many schools. Yes. Now we find 4 schools.
I see.
Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah.
Good.
Shia Ithna Ashriya has one school.
Has
one
school?
School of
I see.
jurisprudence is Ja'far al-Sadiq. School. Yes. And ours is the schools of Abu Hanifa, Malik ibn Anas, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, والشافعي.
Just 3?
No, 4.
Which is the 4th one?
الشافعي. Ahmad ibn Hanbal.
Good. Now we have 4.
Yeah.
Fiqh also means wisdom.
What else?
And I remember a hadith of Prophet Muhammad that the person with whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to do good, he's given the wisdom of deen.
Fiqh.
Yes. Yes.
فقه في الدين.
The main point from fiqh is that it is relevant for the practice of the daily practicing of Muslims.
Okay. Okay. From here, any brothers who would like to say something about fiqh? What can you tell us about fiqh? What do you know about fiqh? No idea?
It's a word which is it's a guidance for everyday life.
It is
It's a guidance for everyday life.
guidance for everyday life.
Yes.
I see. What is the form of this guidance? How it comes?
Through lenses of the Prophet.
Through
Through practices of the Prophet.
practice of the Prophet.
Yes.
Any name for that?
Sunnah. Rasulullah.
What else? Do you mean fiqh means sunnah?
No, I don't mean that exactly.
Then
No.
let's see, what do you mean?
I mean that fiqh is used in everyday life. For example, sleeping,
Good.
going somewhere,
Good.
doing this, wearing clothes, doing this, doing
Yes.
that.
Yes.
That's what I mean.
Uh-huh.
But also it is a practice of the Prophet at the same time.
Uh-huh.
So that's what I mean.
Anything else besides practice? Yes, brother?
It is an interpretation and hermeneutic of Quran and Sunnah.
It is an introduction and hermeneutic of the Quran and Sunnah. It is a technical term used in theology, particularly theology which has emerged from Germany. Schleiermacher is first person who uses it in a very specific sense, and then a historian Dilthey from Germany. He uses it in terms of historic process of understanding. So hermeneutic is a very technical term. I avoid using any terms in our discussion because it's better to be simple. Yes, brother?
Is logical and elaborating deductions from the hadith of the Prophet.
Uh-huh. Well, logical deduction from the hadith of Prophet ﷺ. Logical deduction. I will explain to you, inshallah. Our brothers have said that for them the term fiqh, first thing was said by Talib, is it means differentiation. I think there is some confusion about faraqa and faqaha. Faraqa means differentiation. Faqaha means tafaqquh, deep understanding.
Yes.
What is the basis for the term? The basis for the term is within the Quran. The Quran says there must always be a group of people among you who should involve themselves in tafaqquh fi d-din, yatafaqquhu fi d-din, to find out what is the deep understanding of fiqh. So fiqh literally means deep understanding of deen. Deep understanding of deen. That's very simple meaning. Now, it was said by some other brother that it is deep understanding of Islamic law. It's partially correct, not wrong, partially correct. But later on we find a brother equated Sharia with law, that Sharia is like law. Again some problem. The term Sharia in the Quran is used in the sense of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has descended. Therefore, the Quran says that we have sent messengers with Sharia, with Shara'i. What is Sharia literally? Sharia literally means that path, that passage, that brook which passes. Therefore, Sharia means the path on which humanity is supposed to walk. What is this path? This path is defined in the Quran and Sunnah, in two terms. First, Al-Quran. Second, As-Sunnah Nabawiyya alayhi salatu wassalam. It is the Quran which tells us that Sharia is following the revelation and the example of alayhi salatu wassalam. Therefore, some naive brothers who think, some naive scholars who think that Sharia means Quranic law are completely misguided. Sharia includes the Quran was Sunnah, both. It is not correct to think that Sharia is simply the matter of Al-Quran. Yes, brother.
No, I mistook that. Maybe.
No, I'm not referring to you.
No. But the technical concept of Sharia now is legislation.
No, we'll come to it.
Legal system.
We'll come to it. We'll come to it. So the meaning of the term must be clear before we proceed further. Law, on the other hand, refers to that body which is derived from Sharia. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, you are permitted to have 1, 2, 3 or 4 wives at one time. This is Sharia. Sunnah elaborates it, establishes it by way of telling us how you are going to marry. Based on these two, we will come up with a detailed law of family, where we will have things which are directly said by the Quran and Sunnah, as well as things which are tacitly, indirectly, impliedly said by the Quran and Sunnah. So Sharia becomes the source for law. Law develops as a result of Sharia. You cannot change Sharia, but you can always change law. Why? Because law is a result of interaction of human understanding with divine revelation. Divine revelation consists in 2 forms. And remember, I use words very economically. I am not an orator. When I say Sharia means Quran and Sunnah, when I say that law derives from Quran and Sunnah, then I am very specific about it. I'm not saying it because Muslims love to speak in superlatives. Sharia, therefore, is something which is what we may call non-variable, which means 2 forms of wahi. Again, I'm very economical. 2 forms of wahi, the Quran and Sunnah, are non-variable. They cannot change. They cannot be differentiated. No one can think that, well, so far as Sunnah is concerned, it's a matter of hadith. Therefore, we will see how it works out. No. Sharia means Quran and Sunnah together. Law means that which you deduct from these 2 sources. How we deduct? How law comes into existence? Law comes into existence when you enter in the process of what Brother Harun mentioned, hermeneutic. I will not use a term at all, but I will give you in very simple words how this process takes place. The Quran says, when you cannot afford or when you do not find a situation to make wudu, then you can make tayammum. A companion faces a situation where he does not have any water available and he does not need wudu, but needs ghusl. A new situation. Neither the Quran nor the Sunnah has given him an ayah or a hadith about it. What should he do? He uses his reason and analyzes. Well, why do I need to make tayammum? Because I don't have wudu. I'm not clean. If I can perform tayammum for the smaller invalidity, how about if I roll on dust and make my prayer? He does it by similarity, by using reason. And after doing it, he reports back to Al-Salatu who says, you did very well. Which means now this is confirmed by Sharia. Now it becomes a practice. Now it becomes something permissible. Someone comes to a companion and asks him, a person married a woman, and before he could agree on dowry, the person died. Now, what dowry will you pay to her? And the companion said, well, I don't have any answer right now with me. Come back later. The person comes back later, and for about 1 whole month keeps on reminding him till he says, I think you should find out what is dowry given to relatives of that girl. Say to her mother, to her aunt, if she has a sister, what was dowry, which means customary. And based on that, she should be paid that dowry. Why? Because in a hadith it is said that when you want to marry, then also consider what is known in Arabic as kaf. Kaf means those who are of same level, of same status. So using his reason and trying to solve a problem, the companion comes up with an opinion. Later on, he narrates it to another companion and says, I was faced with this situation and I suggested this solution. And he said, exactly this was done by Al-Salatu himself. This Sahabi, whose name is Ubi bin Ka'b, he says, in my lifetime, there was no day more pleasant for me than to discover what I judged was judged earlier by Al-Salatu because my reason coincided with what he did, and he was a prophet. I discovered I was not on error. Therefore, it was one of the most pleasant days of my life. In other words, the process involves a certain process of intellectual thinking. But this is not a free thinking. It's not a matter of one of these brothers who will open the Quran and read an ayah and then say, well, I think this is what it means, and therefore I make a judgment. I make an ijtihad. No. The term ijtihad, which is a technical term, means that you want to look for things which are either dissimilar or similar in an existing situation and then build on it a new judgment. Therefore, what we do when we want to make ijtihad, we try to find out X is a problem. And for X, we go to the Quran to discover what does the Quran say about X. We find nothing. Example. A pregnant lady is hit by someone, and a pregnant lady, expecting lady, is hit by someone and it causes death to the life which is inside her body, should we regard it as qatl and go for the ayah of the Quran which says that either you execute the person or you pay ransom money? Should we think it is similar or not? In order to find out similarity, we discover what is the principle in the Quran and Sunnah on which we will base our judgment. What is that which Quran gives us? What is that which Sunnah has given us? In other words, we look for the general principle. It's very clear. On the other hand, we find that Sunnah establishes a had or ta'zir for someone who is involved in taking liquor, and that is 40 lashes. Someone who is taking liquor is given 40 lashes by Rasulullah himself. Later on, one of the companions, in attempt to find out what is the underlying principle and how are we going to implement Sharia in a new situation, within the Sharia makes interpretation. He says, the Quran and Sunnah are of same category. Therefore, I will see which one is more relevant in a given situation. If there is an increase in people who are intaking liquor, it has become a hazard. In this situation, I should go for 80 lashes. And therefore, Umar bin al-Khattab, in view of the change of situation, uses ijtihad and says, we will activate this hukum of the Quran because now more people are becoming involved in this activity and 40 lashes are not enough deterrent for them. This is a selection, a choice within the existing Sharia. Sharia which existed by way of the Quran and Sunnah, and the authority which makes this selection is faqih. Faqih who is fully aware. Not every Islamic worker, not every secretary of an association, but a faqih who is fully equipped, qualified, trained in applying hukum of the Quran and hukum of the Sunnah. Talib, you had a question? Okay. So in fiqh, sometimes it's a matter of preference between one hukum shara'i and the other hukum shara'i. This preference is done by way of determining what is the purpose of Sharia. The purpose of Sharia is to have a chaste and honest society. To maintain it, when we activate 80 lashes, then we are fulfilling two principles. One, adl and ihsan in society. Second, to stop munkar and fahsh. These are two principles involved, and therefore within the Sharia there is always an available flexibility which can be invoked and applied. Now, how differences appear? Differences appear between Ali ibn Abi Talib and Umar ibn al-Khattab on same issue. Ali ibn Abi Talib says, alayhi salatu wassalam, who was sharih of Sharia and whose example is also Sharia. He knew very well, and knowing very well, he said, implement 40 lashes. Therefore, I will not think of making a choice between 80 and 40, but I will keep it as 40. Umar says, no, there is a valid ground available, and valid ground is the person who is drunk, indulges in non-serious talk, irresponsible talk, does not know to whom he is talking and what is he saying, and therefore on this person the hukum for allegation will be applicable. Now this is a matter of very sincere effort on the part of both fuqaha. And both fuqaha have a basis in the Quran and Sunnah. Therefore, they have a justification in holding their views, and this difference is not a difference of truth and falsehood. This difference is that of preference. What is preferable in a given situation? Sunnah does not contradict, does not declare that you cannot implement 80 lashes. 80 lashes does not stop him from applying sunnah of 40 lashes in given situations, because it is defined by sunnah. Sunnah has made it specific. So there are differences which have a very genuine and valid basis, and we cannot say that one who is differing is definitely on wrong. Both are on right path because both have a basis. I will give you more examples where you will see that some generalizations. One such generalization is that differences are because of hadith. If we agree on the Quran, there won't be differences. It is again a reflection of ignorance on the part of persons who make this kind of claim. And I will show you by examples that it is completely incorrect to think that there is any conflict, there is any doubt, there is any contradiction in what is known as hadith or sunnah and what is known as the Quran al-Karim. I'll give you examples, and I would like you to help me in coming up with any problems you may have in your mind which you may have heard from others to this effect. Well, I was trying to explain to you what is meant by this process. This process is done in very simple way, and that is we find out by an analytical process what is illah of a hukum. Once we know the illah or the genuine cause, it is not hikmah, reason or wisdom, but it is the genuine cause. What cause is? If we know the cause, then it's very simple for us to go ahead and deduct. What is illah, Maulana Mahmood?
Illah is in literal sense, it is
Example.
but in this sense, it is a cause.
Example.
Example. Give me a particular
Salat.
salat. Illah. In what sense?
What is illah of salat? What is illah of salat?
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us, so we pray.
Okay.
Hukum of Quran, hukum of deen that we have to pray.
What is illah for making hajj?
It is also one of the pillars of Islam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked us to do.
Bilal?
You can't afford it. You don't have to go. That'd be Allah.
Hmm?
You can't afford to go to Mecca. Would that come under Allah?
No.
Well, the foreign
The term illa in Sharia means the genuine cause, not the apparent cause. Let me make another example. When you want to make mash alal khiffain, which means when you want to wipe your feet while you have socks on them, what is the illah for doing it?
Because firstly it is cold, or you are on a journey where you cannot afford to
Good.
wash your face.
Second.
Or wash out
Second.
of the same thing.
Yeah, you said two things.
Two things.
Yeah. What is second?
Firstly, it is that it is cold.
Okay.
That you cannot do it.
Okay.
Secondly, you are on a long journey and it's winter.
Okay. So, there are two things which are given as illah for masah. Number one, journey. Number two, cold weather. It is too cold weather and you cannot wash your feet. Second, that you are doing a journey.
Could be sickness too. Serious injury.
Or there is injury. Or there is sickness. Okay? Now let us see by process of elimination and analysis, is this illah or not? Suppose I am not in journey and I am muqim. I am settled. I am not traveling at all. Can I do mash on socks?
Yes.
Which means this is not illah. If it was real cause, then it should not be cancelled. Real cause must stay, cannot be changed. So this is not. Suppose I am in very cold climate, or suppose I am in very hot climate. Would it justify wiping on my socks? What does common sense tell you? Tarif? No, you see, you are washing your face and your hands in the same cold weather. Apply common sense. If it is harmful for you to wash, then you should not wash your face and hands either. Then why insist on saying that if it is cold, then make masal al-khiffain? This simply means what we have given here is not illah. There is something else which is illah. So this is out again. Third thing, injury. Is it only when someone is injured that he should make masah? Or even when he is not injured, someone who is in journey is not injured, which means is also not a permanent reason, not a genuine cause. So it is also out. When I am healthy, should I make masah or not? Which means this is also out. Now that's what very candidly is one reason for ikhtilaf. I have taken example from you and I have shown you that one faqih from Australia believes that in cold is the cause. Since cold is the cause, he is deducing masah should be done. The problem is, faqih has somehow hit a wrong target of illah, real cause. And therefore, his deduction is going to be wrong. But a hadith says that if the faqih has done his best in determining what is cause, what is the Quranic hukum, what is hukum in hadith, and with all sincerity he somehow reaches a wrong conclusion, then he is pardonable. Rather, he will get one reward. But if a faqih who knows very well that he must look in the Quran and he must look in the hadith, and he thinks, well, Quran is enough, he can never be pardoned. And whatever he is doing is a conscious sin, is a conscious violation of Sharia. And this can never be pardoned. He is cancelling 50% of Sharia. Now let us see what is the illah. Illah in our science of jurisprudence is that hukum which causes something to take place. Illah is the sunnah of alayhi salatu wassalam, that he put socks on his feet and then wiped on top of the socks. It is not because of cold, not because of sickness. Fiqh says that if you are traveling, then for 3 days and 3 nights you are permitted to make masah only on your socks, which means you made your wudu, then you put on your socks which are thick, and you have not taken them off at all. If you take them off for 10 seconds, you cannot regard your wudu as complete. It has broken. Pardon?
Kind of socks that we supposed to
Yeah.
place on.
Yeah. You see, that is an issue of fuqaha, not of fiqh. Fiqh says, which means Quran was Sunnah. Sahaba tell us that if you are going to travel, during travel, you can make masah on your socks for 3 days and 3 nights. And if you are not traveling, then you can make masah for 1 whole day without traveling while you are staying. But the condition is you should not take off your socks, and you should make wudu before you put on your socks. You cannot put on socks and then you make wudu, wash all other parts of body and just wipe your socks because you are lazy Muslim. There is no laziness in Islam. You cannot be a lazy person. But if there is a need that you cannot take your socks off and you already have wudu, then Islam has provided a reason. The fuqaha, a question raised, the fuqaha tell us that if you can wear a socks by wearing which you can walk 1 manzil, which is about 6 or 7 kilometers with the socks, and it does not tear off, then this is the kind of socks which you can use for making masah. Based on this opinion of fuqaha, other fuqaha have deduced that it must be thick, either made from leather or from material which can sustain your walking barefoot for some distance. The general view of fuqaha is that any socks which are strong enough from where you cannot see very clearly your skin, they can be used for making masah. This is general view of the fuqaha. It is only with the Hanafi fuqaha that they insist it must have so much thickness and that much size. Others do not insist on that. Now, we are not dealing with fiqh here. We are dealing with ikhtilaf, reasons for disagreement. And we just saw in this example that someone thought it is journey, someone thought it is cold, someone thought it is sickness, someone thought it is injury. And when you discovered by a process of elimination, you found none of them was the illah. This is what causes differences. Among the Sahaba, they were human beings too. When they found something being done, and then they deliberated and discussed, why are we doing it? And one said, because of this reason. Like Abu Huraira. Abu Huraira said that if you eat food cooked on fire, then you have to renew your wudu. Sayyidah Aisha heard the hadith and said, Abu Huraira misunderstood. We take shower with hot water which is cooked on fire, boiled on fire. It does not cause any need for wudu. On the other hand, it purifies. That which purifies cannot cause breaking of wudu. Therefore, she very clearly said it was just he misunderstood. So, companions can also have a wrong judgment in determining what is illah, because they are also human beings. The only person who cannot do any error is alayhi salatu wassalam himself. Therefore, whatever is given by him in the form of sunnah or hadith is as valid as Al-Quran. Talib, you have a question?
I wonder if you could tell me, how do they reach certain measures like, walking 6 kilometers or, walking 6 kilometers with those socks, or,
Yeah. You see,
3 days and 3 nights?
yeah, this is just like saying that if you cannot fast because of terminal illness, because of extreme old age, then you pay someone 25 rupees. If you are in America, pay the person about 25 US dollars. Why? Where is the hadith? There is no hadith which says 25 US dollars. The reason is, they say that if you want to feed a person, hadith says that you should provide the person with so much quantity of wheat. Uqiyah is the measure. They go and find out what was dimension of this measure. How much wheat will come in it, or barley will come in it. Then they find out what's the price of that much wheat. Now, if that much wheat is to be given to a person for one food, and you want to give him for 2 foods, you multiply by 2. Suppose the measure in which they are putting wheat for one meal says 1 kilogram in modern terms. You find out what's the price of 1 kilogram of wheat. Multiply it by 2. And then come up, this will be the price. This price will vary in varying situations. In Quran and Sunnah, the beauty is that they have given us measures and steps which does not change, only their application change. When the Quran says a bucket, or hadith says a bucket full of wheat, and bucket is defined by the history, by research, this was size of bucket. Then it tells us when we fill the bucket with that much wheat, convert it into price and pay that. So that makes it universally applicable. If hadith said 2 dirham, 2 dirham will keep on changing. But your commodities are better vehicles than currency. Commodity will provide more freedom to people. In every place they will use the commodity and have its equivalent amount. So it will have more universal application. Similarly, when we talk about 1 manzil, 2 manzils, 3 manzils, they go to history and find out after how much distance they stopped to take some refreshment, rest for a while, and that made 1 manzil. In modern times, they work it out. For example, the distance required for making Salat al-Qasr. Again, fuqaha go and find out what was the distance, how many manazil, and those manazil converted into modern measurements. How many kilometers? So they say about 70 kilometers. Yes, so that turns into about 70 kilometers. Yes. These are 3 views actually, not one. 3 views, but 40 is more agreed upon, and therefore it is converted into 70 kilometers of modern time. Yes, brother.
I think even with the ulama usul, they said that even with the speech of the Prophet ﷺ, the hadith, we should consider in which authority the Prophet ﷺ was saying that. Sometimes he was saying something.
Yeah, I know the question. Yes. Yes. You see, we are not discussing that issue here right now. We are discussing the principle. The principle of Sunnah is established. Now, in the Sunnah, which is Sunnah, which is particular to individual choice, and which is applicable to others, is something different. That's not our issue right now. The issue is application of Quran and Sunnah in deduction of laws. I will try to summarize before we come to more questions. The reasons for differences are essentially 4. Firstly, you find that the ayah in the Quran can be interpreted in more than one manners. And I will underscore the statement. Differences are not necessarily due to common understanding of people, and some Muslim scholars even, that it's because of hadith. No, not at all. There are so many places in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purposely, knowingly, because He knows more than you and me about everything, purposely has used words which can be interpreted in more than one manner. Example. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قمتم إلى الصلاة فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق وامسحوا برؤوسكم وأرجلكم إلى الكعبين. Meaning, O you who are believers, when you want to make wudu, then you should ghusl your face, wash your face, and your hands up to your wrists, and your hands, sorry, not wrists, your hands up to your elbows, and make mash with hair, with head, birausikum, and your feet up to your ankles. Now grammatically, if you look into the Quranic ayah, you will find one meaning will be that you wash your face and you wash your hands up to elbows, and then you wipe your head and you wash your feet. Because faghsilu, fa of ghusl applies also on your feet. Same Quran and same Arabic language also means you wash your face and wash your hands up to elbow and wipe your head and your feet. Ba of rawusikum also applies with your feet. Abu Hanifa, a scholar of fiqh and Arabic, maintains that it is washing of feet which is meant here. Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i, an equally competent scholar, holds what it means is that you should wipe your feet. In the same ayah, the Quran says, بِرَوْسِكُمْ. Abu Hanifa, who is a competent scholar of fiqh and Arabic, insists that بِرَوْسِكُمْ means your ras, and ras means from here to here. That is from forehead to neck. Shafi'i says, I know equal knowledge of Arabic, and ba does not mean from here to here, but ba means with it, maybe part of it, maybe all of it. Now, it is not a matter of two linguists disagreeing. It's a very serious matter. If Brother Bilal, where is he? Disappeared. If Brother Bilal makes his wudu with understanding that I will just wipe so much of my head, and makes prayers for 95 years of his life, according to Abu Hanifa, he has not made one single wudu, which means his prayers for 95 years are not valid. There is no prayer without wudu. Can you make prayer without wudu? So it's not a matter of just coming up with some intellectual rigor, egotism. Well, I know Arabic and I know what it means. No. It's something extremely serious, and both are aware of it. They are not trying to have point and counterpoint, but they are showing us that within the Quran there are possibilities of holding more than one fiqhi positions, and both positions will be valid so long as the faqih has followed proper methodology. The problem is many amateurs, many people who do not know the methodology, simply open up the Quran with the help of translation, not even knowing the Arabic, but just reading a translation, and then they say the Quran says so and so, therefore I do it. No. It's not a matter of your free interpretation. It's not a matter of what you see in the words of translation, but it's a matter of methodology. That methodology must be understood and mastered. Only then you can come up with proper judgment. Fiqh, therefore, is most difficult area where you must have what someone said a while ago, a very deep understanding of usul ad-din. Usul ad-din are different than usul al-fiqh. Don't confuse them. You must have a very good understanding of maqasid al-sharia. You must have a very clear understanding of linguistic aspects of the Quran. It's not a matter of just reading a translation, but reading it directly, understanding and applying it. Similarly, you must have knowledge of X number of ahadith. X number of ahadith is determined by our scholars as minimum 100,000. Therefore, a person who claims that he is faqih and mufti must know very well what he is doing. The person must know very well that he cannot come up with judgments unless he is fully aware about earlier decisions taken by the fuqaha and sahaba. It's not a matter of just opening up a book and saying, well, the Quran says, so we do it. So this deduction which leads to fiqh has a methodology, and that methodology needs to be followed strictly when we want to develop any corpus of law. Now, second reason for differences is within the hadith and sunnah. Just as the Quran has provided examples where there can be more than one interpretations, similarly, we have in hadith and sunnah situations which can be interpreted in more than one manner without causing any conflict, without denying one over the other. Example, many of the brothers will pray by binding their hands on chest. Others will pray by leaving their hands on both sides. Some will pray by binding their hands on their navel. These are three recognized, established manners through sunnah. One does not negate the other. It's only a matter of juristic opinion. Abu Hanifa believes that the last practice which was established by Al-Salatu was-Salam before he met his Allah, he was binding his hands on navel. Shafi'i believes that the people of Medina who saw him and the community of companions with whom Shafi'i had more reliable contact through hadith, they were doing it, and therefore it is preferable that you bind your hands on chest. Yes. Malik holds the view that no, if you leave your hands on sides, which was also ta'amul of people of Medina, sunnah. Now, see the beauty that exists in Islam. These three various modes do not contradict each other and provide Muslim Ummah with all possible flexibility and freedom. And see the adaptability and respect that Imam al-Shafi'i, when he visits Medina, he makes his prayer by losing his hands on both sides. And when someone asks him, Ya Shaykh, what's wrong with you? He says, although I believe that binding hands on chest is preferable, but this is also sunnah. And I am in the city of Malik, who is known as the Imam of Medina. I would like to honor him by praying in the manner he prayed. In other words, there is no involvement of this is sinful and this is right. Within the sunnah, there are possibilities of more than one manners, and all those manners, so long as they are authenticated, will be correct. Yes.
Then we have texts during that Malik said that. I think what Malik wrote in his book, and what these two hadiths he insists on this on topic. only his disciples after him speak of certain.
You see, you are raising the question which I am not discussing. I am not discussing the issue whether the argument of Malik or Malikis is valid or not. I am telling you that there are reasons which are very valid for differences in masalik of fiqh, and these masalik or differences do not mean one is correct, the other is wrong. The point is not should we verify one position or not. The point is what do we have by way of differences and why. I am concerned about why these differences. I am not concerned about is this one example correct or not. That can be done in some later discussion. You will find among the companions there are examples where a hukum has been interpreted and understood in more than one manners. Alayhi wassalam asked some companions they should go and camp at a point. And while they are on their way, they should make extra effort to reach the point, so they make their asr on that destination. They start. While they are traveling, the time for asr came on their way. Some companions thought, the Quran says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has fixed timings of prayer on determined time. The ayah, you remember? Inna salata kanat kitaban mawquta. They thought that this kitaban mawquta means fixed time, so we must pray right now. Others said, no, the commander, the Rasulullah has told us, make your asr when you reach destination. We'll pray there. None of them thought the other group has become defaulter. They never pulled their swords against each other. Those who were convinced that they must make prayer right on their way, they made it. Those who deferred till they reached destination, deferred and made their asr when they reached destination. When they came back, they narrated the story to Rasulullah wassalam, and he approved both actions. Which means that a hukum taken by two groups of same Sahaba in two different manners was fully approved by him, and therefore this difference does not lead to what many of us believe, that if someone is following this fiqh, then he is inferior. If I am following the other fiqh, I am superior. It's not a matter of superiority, nor a matter of who is definitely right or wrong. It's a matter of flexibility which exists within the schools of Islamic fiqh and interpretation. Thirdly, the disagreement or the view of fuqaha and companions in determining what is the real reason, real cause. We took an example earlier of tayammum. Take the example where the Quran says, fasting has been made obligatory on you. But if you are traveling or if you are sick, you can defer it and complete the count later. This is because we want to make deen easy for you. Ad-deenu yusr. There is no usr but yusr. In order to make it easy, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given himself an option, a choice for a person who is either traveler or sick. Now, if some fuqaha apply reason and they say why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying when you are traveling you may defer. Then they will come up with this kind of a statement. They will say that, well, the illah is you don't have much time. The illah is that maybe you are in a country where it's difficult to find food and water on time, and therefore you are permitted not to fast. Our fuqaha say, if we approach the issue in this manner, and we say that the illah is existence of some bodily discomfort or difficulty, then the ironsmith who is sitting in front of fire hammering on the iron must be exempted permanently from siyam, because he is in more hardship than the person who is traveling. Which means illah is neither time nor any kind of physical hardship, but illah is hukum al-Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the wisdom why He has given this option or choice for us. So the ayah causes this hukum to be implemented, and not necessarily what may be interpreted in fiqh as hikmah. So when there is a variation of thinking on determining what is illah and what is hikmah among fuqaha, we have difference of opinion. And fourthly, there are differences when there is a matter of choice between two things with valid grounds. What is preferable? What is mustahsan? Mustahsan means the one which has more merit than the other. This again is determined in terms of the public good. If public good or maslaha amma demands that one thing should be done which is equally permissible, then fuqaha go for it. If maslaha amma or public good demands that Y should be done, then they go for it. Examples of maslaha amma: in a given situation where you have shortage of food stuff, or where you have a kind of famine, people are unable to get any food material, should you implement the Islamic hukum of chopping hand? What is maslaha amma? What is public good? Public good in normal case is that you should catch the thief and execute him, because he has violated public property. Public good in such a situation where there is no food available for people is that you do not implement because the person is compelled. To save his life, he may commit theft. So public good in many situations provides us a choice between what is preferred in a given situation. Now, definitely there will be more than views on public good. One faqih, after all sincere investigation, will say public good is this. Other will say no, public good is this. When you have two public goods, then you will decide which public good is more nearer to Quran and Sunnah. And that must lead you to differences in Masalik, which is natural. So differences in Masalik are something natural. They are not to be worried about. They are not to be taken as a threat. They are not a weak point of Islam. On the other hand, they are a strength of Islam. They provide you with more flexibility. People living in different conditions can follow different fiqh. In different situations, they can invoke different decisions taken up. And in this way, human problems can be solved in more appropriate manner. In conclusion, I will say that the more we have differences in fiqh, which are based on valid ground, the more we have flexibility in our way of life. Therefore, Muslims should not think they should reduce differences. They should think developing understanding of differences. They should think respecting differences of brothers. They should think of accepting those differences which are based on some valid ground. And that will be more appropriate and near to the objective of Islam than to make an artificial attempt and say all Muslims must unite and they should have only one fiqh. No, this is foolishness. This is complete ignorance on the part of those political leaders who have no idea about Islamic fiqh. Islamic fiqh provides us extreme freedom and flexibility because of this character.
There is a hadith, but it is not very strong.
No, it is quite strong. A contemporary critic of hadith, Albani, has done a very good takhrij of this hadith and has shown in his book that this is a strong hadith.
Difference in my community is mercy.
Yes, yes.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I have two questions. I was asked by some Muslimah student and also medical student. She asked me if some Muslimah was left and also she was pregnant, how should she do by the Sharia of Islam? That's the first one. The second one, if we find some hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stronger than the fiqh of four imam, how should we do? Thank you very much.
Very good. About first question, there is a principle in our Sharia which is known as principle of durura. Durura means extreme necessity. Extreme necessity means when you have no choice but taking certain step. Example, if you are traveling in a desert on a camel and you have nothing but the camel, no food, no water, then you can even use the saliva of camel or his urine to save your life, which is haram. It is haram, very clearly. But you have no option, no choice. If you are traveling and there is nothing available but a piece of dead flesh or a piece of flesh from, say, pork, this is durura. This does not mean that once you have tasted that, you look for hamburger shops. No. Durura means when you cannot survive without it. The lady who is alone and who cannot be attended by a lady gynae, she is in normal situation not expected to show her aura, her private parts, to even a lady in normal case, as is for men. The hadith says men are not expected and supposed to expose themselves to other men, nor women. Therefore, in normal situation, she is not supposed to unveil her body to even a lady. But when she is pregnant and someone has to attend her, then preference will be that she find out a lady for delivery. Suppose she is in a place where there is no single female gynae. Darura means in such a situation she is permitted to have her delivery done by a male. But she cannot take it as a permanent practice. She must keep on finding after the delivery or before the delivery. If she can find a pediatrician who is female, then she must try to contact that lady and be in touch with her. For the second case, Abu Hanifa has answered the question by saying, if you find a da'if hadith and my judgment, my view conflicting, please accept da'if hadith, throw away my view. This is Abu Hanifa who answers this question very candidly. Now do not think that da'if hadith is a wrong hadith. Many of the brothers who are unaware of ulumul hadith, they think da'if means literally weak, and weak means not strong, and not strong means wrong. They think sahih means correct. They think hasan means beautiful, acceptable. Now these are literal translations of words and not technical meaning. Technical meaning of sahih and hasan and daif are completely different. Daif technically means the hadith which does not carry the qualities of sahih and hasan, which does not mean it's wrong, does not mean it has something faulty, does not mean it's fabricated, does not mean that, well, it is daif, weak, maybe I will look at it sometime. No. You are nobody in comparison to a daif hadith. A daif hadith is much more stronger than views of all fuqaha put together, and you included in that. Therefore, in Islamic fiqh, matters are very simple if we want to understand them. But if we want to enter in linguistic and other controversies, then we can waste our time in those, which is useless. Next question.
Respected Dr. Sahab and dear brothers in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My question is this, that some scholars are of this opinion that doors of ijtihad are closed, and how far they are correct in their statement, and who is the authority to make ijtihad at present?
You see, this is a typical question which is raised in many Western universities in gatherings that deal with Islamic fiqh. And the typical answer is that door of ijtihad is not closed. But let us take a non-typical answer. What is meant by closing the door of ijtihad? It means that the fiqh which has developed as a result of ijtihad has enough competence in meeting new situations. Now this statement is scientifically wrong. Fiqh, as we said a while ago, is that bulk of literature which is devised in view of the Quran and Sunnah in solving problems. There cannot be any human society where you can say, now we will have no more problems. Can any one of the fuqaha provide us where Imam Abu Hanifa or Imam Malik or Imam Jafar or Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal or Imam Malik, they have given us a Quranic ayah and a hadith, and based on that written a manual for driving on highways? There were no highways at that time. Why should they write a manual on highways based on Quran and Sunnah? But now when you have highways, you need to go to the Quran and Sunnah and find out how will we drive our vehicles on highways based on the Quran and Sunnah. When there was no need for nuclear physics and its hazards, you will not find fuqaha talking about it. But now you have hazards that come into existence because of nuclear physics, and you must raise the question, what is hukum of the Quran and Sunnah about nuclear technology, nuclear warfare, nuclear surgery, and so on? Which means that if we believe, or anyone believes, that door of ijtihad is closed, he is saying that these new problems need not be touched and tackled. Just read what we call in our fiqhi language, yellow books of fiqh, the big books on yellow pages. Go and read those books and you'll find everything. No, it's not possible. These issues did not exist at that time. In other words, door of ijtihad was never closed because fiqh is an ever-evolving phenomenon. What is evidence? You find the 5 major I.I.U.I coming to a termination latest by 4th century. But you find others after them who have kept the door of ijtihad open, like Taqiyuddin Ahmad ibn Taymiyyah, a 13th century man. You find Shah Waliullah, a 17th century man. You find after him others like Maududi coming up with ijtihadat which were never thought of earlier. And in his own age, his contemporary fuqaha never thought of those ijtihadat. So the door of ijtihad was never closed historically, it always continued. What are shurut al-ijtihad? Shurut al-ijtihad, or conditions for making ijtihad, are determined by our fuqaha in view of the seriousness of the issue. I said a while ago that he must have knowledge of the Quran. Knowledge of the Quran does not mean reading translation of Yusuf Ali or Marmaduke Pickthall, or reading Mus'haf in Arabic, thinking, I have learned Arabic, now I am an alim. We must watch for this self-deception which exists with each one of us. No one is an exception to it. As soon as you try to understand a discipline, you develop a feeling, now I have grasped it, mastered it, all others are much lower than me. I don't need any further education. I don't need any training. I should be trainers of people in this camp. Because I am much more intelligent and knowledgeable. Because I have memorized some Quran and I know some Arabic. Because I have read some book of tafsir. This deception must be watched out very carefully. When I say necessary knowledge of the Quran, it means, number one, he should be able to understand the Quran directly, as I gave you examples about one ayah which is understood by Abu Hanifa and Shafi in two different manners. He must have this much understanding of the Quran to know whether there can be more than one interpretation of this ayah or not. Secondly, he must know the sabab and nuzul of every Quranic hukum. In other words, the context in which the hukum came. Example, if you pick up Quranic ayah by opening the Quran, which says, La taqrubu salah wa antum sukara, and you say, from today I will not make my prayer at all, because the Quran says, don't come close prayer when you are in forgetfulness. You have understood the meaning, but wrongly. You have taken it out of context. You don't know sabab al-nuzul of this ayah. Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, who was leading prayer of some companions when they finished their meal during night. And then, before the hukum for hurma of khamar came, like other people, they took some liquor. And as it was customary, they will never part unless they will make some prayer. They stood for prayer, and Abdul Rahman ibn Auf read in prayer things which were not suitable. This is before tahreem of khamar, before liquor was prohibited. Immediately revelation comes and says, you should not come close prayer. Now you cannot separate, you cannot understand fully, you cannot apply it unless you have gone to the context. When you know the context, you know the meaning. So he must know what is the sabab an-nuzul of an ayah. Thirdly, he must know what is the meaning of muhkam and mutashabih fil Quran. Again, the naive, superficial understanding of mutashabih is, it is what is allegorical, ambiguous, unclear, confusing. These are translations which are used by Muslims and non-Muslims. Mutashabih never means that. The Quran never means something ambiguous, unclear, allegorical when the term mutashabih is used. Even those who claim they are born Arabs have translated mutashabih as allegorical, ambiguous. And they have done a blunder, an error in understanding the meaning of mutashabih. It is a term used by the Quran which refers to phenomena which is not empirically verifiable by human beings. Therefore the Quran says, Yadullah is mutashabih. Fastawa ala al-arsh is mutashabih. They ask you about the news. Amma yatasa'alun anin naba'il azim. Naba'il azim is mutashabih. Does it mean that al-akhirah is ambiguous, confusing, vague? Does it mean Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, na'udhu billah, is vague, confusing, does not exist? The problem is we have amateurs who have not done their homework in Islam, who don't know what is Islam, who have not studied what is jurisprudence, and they come up and claim they know Islam. So third thing is, he must know what is muhkam and mutashabih fil Quran. Fourthly, he must know very clearly what is a nasikh wal mansukh fil Quran. Again, you will find many Muslims and non-Muslims translating mansukh as abrogated, cancelled, void. All three translations are wrong. Mansukh is not necessarily abrogated, void, or cancelled. As a term, it has different meaning. Even what is mansukh is relevant for fiqhi deductions, although not for the hukum for which it's mansukh. The Quranic ayah, which I just recited before you, La taqrabu as-salaa wa antum sukara, is mansukh for khamr, but not mansukh for other deductions. We will deduce from it that this ayah is the basis for prohibition of all intoxicants such as LSD, marijuana, your barbiturates, which are developed in various forms and shapes.